Welcome to Consumer Law Studio, presented by South Carolina Legal Services. Bringing you interviews of voices and faces from the consumer law scene in South Carolina and around the nation. Today, Susan Ingalls interviews Carri Lybarker, the administrator of the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs.
Okay, I'm here with Carri Lybarker, who is the administrator of the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Susie.
I appreciate you talking with us. Tell me a little bit about what you do as the administrator and maybe talk in general about what the department does.
Sure. So the Department of Consumer Affairs is the state's consumer protection agency. We are to make sure that the marketplace is a safe place for consumers to transact business while giving due regard to those companies that are acting fairly and honestly. And as the administrator, it's my job to oversee our department in carrying out its mission and the day-to-day activities of that.
Okay. And you have different divisions, is that right? Tell me about those.
So we have 6 divisions. The first division that most people know us for is our Consumer Services Division. That's the complaint division. So we get about 4,000 complaints from South Carolina consumers and consumers from across the United States on an annual basis. And when those complaints come in, our complaint analysts take a look at it and they see whether or not it's against a business that we regulate here at the department. If it is, then it'll go over to our other division, the legal division, that I'll go into more detail about in a moment. And the attorneys in that division will take a look at it. If the business is regulated by another state or federal agency, we'll refer that complaint out to the appropriate agency. If the business is not regulated by anyone, which in the majority of circumstances, that's the situation that we're in, then our complaint analysts will engage in a voluntary mediation process to try and come to a resolution. So that's our Consumer Services Division. We have an Administration Division, which is just that. They take care of the administration type activities for the department. Our information technology, human resources, they keep us going. And then we have a Consumer Advocacy Division. We intervene in insurance rate cases. Right now, mainly that's with workers' compensation insurance, so that if an insurance company wants to raise rates, we take a look at it to see, or even decrease rates, to see if the increase is warranted or if the decrease should be more. We used to intervene in utility rate cases, but that was moved to another agency back in 2005. And we can also submit comments to any federal or state agency that is setting rates or prices for consumer goods or services, and they engage in some regulation of certain industries like continuing care retirement communities, discount medical plan organizations, and professional employer organizations. So those companies have to get a license with us before they can do business. Legal division is our biggest division. We at the department have the responsibility of administering and enforcing a bunch of consumer protection laws in Title 37 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. So there are 15 industries total that have to get a license or some kind of registration with our office. They range from pawnbrokers to mortgage brokers, credit counselors, physical fitness facilities, gyms have to get a license with us. And then we also have some general authority. If someone is doing a credit sale or a loan, there are provisions within the code that we administer and enforce there as well. So we bring our own cases. We have investigators that go across the state. I think last month alone they drove 8,000 miles to do compliance reviews and investigations. And a lot of those come from complaints. A lot of times we find out that a business is not complying with the law through a complaint from a consumer. So one consumer can complain and 400 could get refunds based on that complaint. It's a great process. Public information and education is another one of our divisions. Education is a core component of what the department does. We want to make sure that consumers and businesses are aware of their rights and responsibilities under the laws, consumer protection laws. So we do press releases, we make consumer brochures, we go out and do presentations, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, anything we can do to try and get the message out there so that people know what their rights are.
I retweet y'all a lot on Twitter.
Great. Hopefully we return the favor as well. It's amazing that you can put one tweet out there and people retweet it. So you tweet it to your 3,000 followers and all of a sudden it's to 50,000 because you got retweeted.
It's a great way to get the information out there.
And quickly.
Yeah.
And our last division, which is our newest division, is the Identity Theft Unit. And that came about after the 2012 Department of Revenue security breach.
Right.
They just launched in October of 2013, so we haven't even been live there for 2 years yet. But we try and educate consumers on how to prevent being an identity theft victim.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you think that you are a victim of identity theft, then our staffers there can help you navigate that process so that you can dispute any charges and try and get your name clear, because it can be quite a web to deal with. And most certainly it can have a lot of damage when you're a victim of identity theft. So
Right. So if people are, I believe they may be a victim of identity theft, they just make a call?
just call us. We have a toll-free number, 800-922-1594. Consumers can call if they have a complaint. We can mail it a complaint form or direct them to our website to file a complaint. Or if they have a scam that they're aware of, our identity theft unit will take scam calls, because that's oftentimes how scam artists, fraudsters will get your personal information, is by calling you up and posing as your bank, or a debt collector, or saying you've won a lottery and get personal information from you, so we can let others know about that. And then, of course, if you think you're an identity theft victim or want information on how to not become an identity theft victim, they can certainly talk to you about that.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about the area of regulations, because you are a government agency, and
We are.
so you have some input with regulations in the consumer world. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
So that's one of the roles that I have as the administrator, is to advise the governor and the General Assembly about laws that would affect consumers. And then, of course, we have a lot of laws. I think there's 38 statutes that the department has responsibility for, to make sure that businesses are complying with them and that consumers are protected under them. So we have roles of drafting legislation. We have roles of drafting regulations to supplement those laws that are out there if there are gaps, and sending those over to the legislature. And then we testify at the General Assembly while they're in session, whether it's a piece of legislation that we think is filling a gap. We'll look at the complaints that are coming in, and we'll look at the laws to see if there is something that could be done to maybe protect consumers in that area. And we'll draft something up, talk to interested parties, get some partners together, and take it over to the State House. Or there may be a law that someone puts our name in that we may or may not be in favor of, or just something that generally would affect consumers that we'll watch and track and testify on behalf of consumers, because there are a lot of people that have their voices heard over at the State House, and the majority of times it's not the people who would be affected by those laws, those consumers. So we hope to be a good voice for those consumers.
That's great. And you've been the administrator for how long?
4 years.
Okay.
4 years. Yes, the department has had 5 administrators in its 40-year history. This is actually our 40th anniversary year.
So it's a big year.
It is a big year for us. It's pretty exciting. And I'm very honored and happy to be the administrator. I started here about 10 years ago as a law clerk, and have enjoyed my time. Everyone's a consumer, so we represent everyone.
Well, how do you compare or work with, like, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and other kind of consumer-oriented agencies and groups like that?
Sure. So the Federal Trade Commission has a wide array of responsibilities as well, of course, on the nationwide level, since they are the Federal Consumer Protection Agency, or one of the Federal Consumer Protection Agencies. So we work a lot with the Southeast region of the Federal Trade Commission. If there are cases, like recently, we did a joint nationwide sweep with the Federal Trade Commission on automobile advertising. That's one of the areas, one of the statutes that we look at, is to make sure that auto dealers aren't being deceptive or misleading in their advertising practices. And it was our office, and I think there were about 40 other law enforcement agencies across the United States, both state and federal, who got together and over a year's time period ramped up enforcement for auto advertising, as well as education for consumers to make sure that they know what their rights are when they're purchasing a vehicle. And so I think it was Operation Ruse Control, aptly named. The Federal Trade Commission has some great resources. We've never come up with such catchy names.
Right.
I always say, do you have someone locked in a room who's coming up with all these, kind of kitschy?
There's smart people out there who can come up with that stuff
It's
that grabs
great.
your attention. So
Exactly.
that's great.
And it works.
Yeah.
It certainly works. So we all got together, and we issued over 78 violation letters that contained over 100 violations in there. We sent compliance letters notifying all the auto dealers in South Carolina to remind them of what the laws are and they could report. I said complaints is certainly a number one way that we find out about non-compliant businesses, and so is industry reporting. If someone's taking your clients because they're doing things unlawfully, let us know. I mean, that's always, industry reporting is a great way for us to find out too. So we join together in nationwide sweeps with enforcement. If there's a case that we may need assistance with, they'll give us pleadings. Sometimes we'll do joint actions with them if there's a defendant that we have, or if we don't have the resources. I mean, we're a 40-person agency at this point in time. So we have just about as many people as we do statutes, that we're having to administer and enforce. And
that is tough coverage.
It is, but leveraging resources is a great way to be able to make sure that you are trying to cover all bases. And the Federal Trade Commission has been a great partner in that. Education, too. If we ever have an educational event going on, we can just give them a ring, and they'll be happy to come down to participate.
And they have a lot of good materials on their own website. Yeah, free materials that are just terrific. And all kinds of consumer areas.
They do, and ever-changing. I mean, their websites, they keep coming up with more simplistic websites that are more straightforward to give the information that consumers want to know, not what necessarily we think they should know, which is often a barrier that we have to get through. But you can bulk order all that information. So if consumers want information on any type of consumer topic, they can go to the Federal Trade Commission, or they can contact us and we can mail them out, because we have a closet of brochures that we could.
And so I guess really even any kind of organization, community organizations, churches, some group that's going to give a presentation about consumer law or identity theft, for example,
debt collection.
They can actually contact y'all and the FTC and actually get some brochures to hand out with great information.
That's right. Yeah.
Not just individual consumers.
Exactly. And the FTC will say, take our information and plagiarize it. Like they just want it to get out there. But if people go to ftc.gov/bulk order is where they have the listing of all the brochures that they can get access to. And they usually get them to you within 3 weeks. Sometimes they have a higher demand, but it's just for planning ahead purposes. But I mean, the amount of information that they have out there is it's amazing.
That's really great, and that's good information for people who maybe don't have access to the internet and can't click around online and get all that good information. So
and I like paper. I mean, it's
me too.
I don't know.
Old school with that.
Yeah, if it's the lawyer in me, I don't know. But I mean, I like to feel things, and I write notes on things, so it's always good to have. So that's how we've worked with the Federal Trade Commission, and they've been around, longer than we have. I think they just celebrated last year their 100th. Anniversary.
They're a great partner, going strong.
They are. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a new federal partner for us. They've only been around for a couple of years. And the focus that we've utilized with them so far is enforcement. Wow. Whether it's joining together to do an examination of a company that we have jurisdiction over, or if it's just letting them know about a bad actor that we have seen in a certain area that we may not have jurisdiction over, but we think that they potentially may be interested in the topic. And then just information sharing, because they're new to the block. They've done a lot of surveying of agencies to see what the top issues are out there. We've commented on a regulation that they have put out on debt collection, and we'll continue to do so as they get their identity and figure out what kind of impact that they want to have on the consumer protection.
So when your organization or your department gives comments on things like that, is that on your website if somebody wanted to see that?
It's not yet, but we actually upgraded our website a couple of years ago, and then now we have made it so it has responsive design, so people can look up on their phone or on the iPad and not have to pinch or expand or anything. So we were kind of on pause while all that was going forward, and that gave us time to look to see what we need to do. And we're going to be putting our interpretations on our website soon, hopefully before the end of the calendar year. And then also starting to put our comments that we're going to do. It's something that we have in our advocacy division that we're looking to kind of breathe new life into that division and become more active in that space of providing the comments.
Well, that's great, because your website is already terrific.
Thank you.
To expand it like that is going to be even better.
Yeah.
Well, what's on the horizon besides that? What else is on the horizon for the Department of Consumer Affairs?
Well, we are finally coming out of the dust from the economic downturn. I mean, you know, a lot of people, consumers we know, felt the heat from all of that, and our office did too. We had at one point 68 full-time employees and about 12 temporary employees, and went down to 2011. We were at 27 full-time employees. So we're back up to 40. We have been thoughtful in trying to figure out how we want to expand, where are the gaps that we have internally with our mission. As far as could we be more efficient? Is there an area that we really haven't touched upon in a long time or ever that we think would be good for protecting consumers in this century, in this day and age, as you know, technology and scam artists are just changing on a daily basis. So we have implemented a new online complaint system. We did that last year to try and make things a little bit more efficient for us. So consumers can go to our website at consumer.sc.gov and file a complaint. Consumers can search complaints before they decide to do business with someone to see what other consumers' experiences are like.
So, yeah, encourage people to go check that out. That's great.
Right. Part of backgrounding a business. You should never hire somebody that you don't know who they are, and see how other people enjoyed or did not enjoy their services. So that has really allowed us to be more efficient and cut down on paper and cut down on space, and allowed businesses to respond to complaints online. So our response times have been cut in half. It used to be about 45 to 55 days that it took to resolve a complaint, and now it's about 25 days to be able to complete that process. So there we're going to look at quality control and make sure that we are addressing all the areas in a complaint that need to be addressed. So consumers may think that the issue is one thing, and really there's a law that is on the books that the consumer may not know about that really is a bigger problem and may get the consumer a better result than what they initially thought. So we're trying to be
proactive about those kind of things.
Yeah, trying to look and make sure that we're not just letting stuff slide. We're not just pushing paper. We're actually critically thinking about the complaints that are being submitted. So we're working on that. We're, like I said before, trying to look at the advocacy role and see what the best fit is there. And I think that providing more comments as these federal regulations from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and FTC are coming down, that we let them know what we're seeing in South Carolina and what we think would be best for our South Carolina consumers. And the legal side, we're looking at ramping up enforcement and making sure that we are having a prevalent role in protecting our consumers with the statutes that we have the responsibility for. So there's going to be some shifting in there. We have a new database that will help us be more efficient with providing our licensing and registration duties that will allow us, I think, to focus on that and to prioritize there. And we keep on moving on. It's exciting times at the department. That's right.
Future with the Department of Consumer Affairs.
That's
well,
right.
Carri, thank you so much for being with me. I've been with Carri Lybarker, who's Administrator of the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Susie.